So obviously I have a lot of Nintendo Switch games, and the Nintendo Switch 2 just came out. And I feel like one of the things that got memed with the original Nintendo Switch was the fact that games run horrible or look horrible. I mean, look at this. This looks pretty rough on the Switch 1.
Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah.
And I think a lot of people was asking themselves, hey, how are these games going to look like on the Nintendo Switch 2? Something that is a way better hardware. In fact, Nintendo has been updating their games for free. And we've also been seeing games automatically look better and run better on the system without there being an update. And I did a video like this a few weeks ago where y'all loved that idea. So I decided to take that concept and go further with it. I decided to play more Nintendo Switch 1 games onto the Nintendo Switch 2. And in today's video, I'm going to show you what I played, how I feel about it, and what it looks like on the Switch 2. But before we get into that, I have to ask, guys, if you have not already, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel as we're trying to hit 22,000 subscribers by the end of July. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, let's start off with a big one that is also kind of a funny one. The Wonderful 101 Remastered. Now you might be asking yourself, Max, why is this funny? Well, I've been a big fan of this game since I got it on the Nintendo Wii U. I thought the Wonderful 101 was such a unique concept, a creative game, and something that was just beautiful. It was art. That's what I thought, at least. And then, you know, everyone was wanting this game to come back onto the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, it didn't do well because it came out as a Wii U exclusive and it just sold poorly. And I was like, you know what? We need this game to come back. I'm gonna tell Kamiya how I loved the Wonderful 101, and maybe somehow me telling him that will help bring the Wonderful 101 back. So I tweeted him at 2018. I was just straight up being like, hey, Kamiya, I just want you to know the Wonderful 101, phenomenal game. I said something like that, and I got blocked by Kamiya. Kamiya blocked me on Twitter. If you don't know who Kamiya is, he is the director, the creator, and I'm pretty sure the writer of the Wonderful 101. Yeah, I got blocked, but that didn't stop me from being a fan, because guess what? In 2020, they announced a Kickstarter for Wonderful 101, and they said if you Kickstarted the game and you reached the goal, you would actually get unblocked by Kamiya, because if you guys don't know, Kamiya blocks a lot of people. We hit the goal, and guess what? Kamiya did not unblock me, but at least I get this cool slipcover that confirms the fact that I was a Kickstarter for this game. So, hey, I helped bring the game to Switch, I guess. But you don't care about that story. You care about figuring out how this runs and looks on the Nintendo Switch 2. Come to find out, this game did not get a Nintendo Switch 2 update. However, due to the specs of the Switch 2, it was already able to run the game better without having a software update. And so because of that, the Wonderful 101 is finally running at a locked 60 frames per second on a Nintendo platform. On the Wii U, it struggled to do that. And on the Switch 1, it definitely struggled with the locked 60 frames per second. But now with the Nintendo Switch 2, this game was locked there at 60 FPS, and visually it already looks like an amazing, beautiful game. So there was no visual updates, of course, as the game didn't get updated. But I think it's cool to see that without an update being needed, they were able to get this game at 60 frames per second on a Nintendo platform. So if you have not checked out the Wonderful 101, this is one of the coolest games out there. You will not regret it. I'm pretty sure you can find it at GameStop for like less than 15 bucks. I will say, if somehow, some way you still have a Wii U, I will always say try playing it on the Wii U. I know we just talked about the frame rate, but from a controller standpoint, this game is perfect with the Wii U gamepad. All right, next up is Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Now, this game got a big Switch 2 update, at least that's what Nintendo was hyping it up to be. How there was going to be improved visuals, added things such as the game share, game chat, all that stuff into this game. And while I was not able to use the game share, I do know, seeing the abilities that they added within Captain Toad that you can do with game share, is pretty cool, but at the same time, it's like, it's Captain Toad. No one's really playing this game anymore. So it was kind of weird for them to do as much as they did. But what's even stranger about Captain Toad is they updated the visuals. At least that's what Nintendo was telling you. And I played through Captain Toad. In fact, I streamed it. Honestly, I couldn't really tell the difference when it comes to the visuals. It looked exactly the same, but Nintendo was saying that this game was visually improved on the Switch 2. Now, one thing that I am going to say that was a major missed opportunity when it comes to Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is the fact they did not update the game with mouse controls. This quite literally is the perfect game for Nintendo to have with mouse controls for the Nintendo Switch 2. In fact, I predicted earlier this year that Nintendo would at some point continue Captain Toad, but with the Switch 2 mouse controls. This was gonna be like their gimmick game to promote the mouse controls on Nintendo Switch 2. And when I saw this game was getting updated, I was like, oh my gosh, they're definitely gonna do something with the mouse controls. And there is nothing done here. And I'm so confused as to why Nintendo did that, because this would have been perfect. I think it's interesting that Nintendo did update Captain Toad of all games. It makes me feel like that maybe I still have a point to where Nintendo could be bringing back Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for another game. It's still an incredible game, but if you're looking for something crazy with the Switch 2 updates, it's not there. I never noticed any big visual difference to this game, but if you're a fan of the game share features, this has a lot of that with the Switch 2. Just out of curiosity, I decided to go back to the world of The Witcher 3 to see how this was going to look on the Nintendo Switch 2. Because obviously on the Switch 1, the game looked rough, but at most times it had a pretty solid frame rate on the Nintendo Switch, but at times it definitely dropped frames on the Nintendo Switch 1. So I was curious, would it do the same thing on the Nintendo Switch 2? As there was no update done to this game, which a lot of people are wanting there to be a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of The Witcher 3, but it had my curiosity. Would this game have a better frame rate at the very least? And surprisingly, I had a locked frame rate when playing Witcher 3. I was heavily impressed, and I still think it's an incredible accomplishment that CD Projekt Red was able to put this game on the Nintendo Switch 1. Now, CD Projekt Red, with that being said, this game has a better frame rate now, but I think a lot of us would still like to see The Witcher 3 look on par with today's versions of Witcher 3 that isn't the Switch 1 edition. So hopefully CD Projekt Red has something cooking with The Witcher 3 and that we get a brand new Nintendo Switch 2 edition of this game. Because it's kind of weird how they're talking so positively of the Switch 2, but still not doing anything with The Witcher 3. Hopefully that happens. Next up on the list is one I'm excited to talk about, because any opportunity that I get to talk about this game when I can, I'm gonna take it. And that is good old ARMS. ARMS got a Nintendo Switch 2 update that came honestly out of nowhere, because a lot of people thought that this IP was dead and that it was just never gonna be touched again. But Nintendo was like, nah. We're gonna improve the visuals. We're gonna give ARMS 4K support. We're gonna improve the frame rate. This is gonna be a full open book for people. This is gonna be the new era of ARMS. And so Nintendo updated the game. And from a visual standpoint, I saw a little bit of a difference, but it's not a giant difference. It really depends the type of stage that you're playing on with ARMS to see that graphical improvement. And in terms of the frame rate was never really that bad for the Switch 1. It was only crazy if you did multiplayer stuff. And I got the opportunity to try out the multiplayer for a little bit, and the frames rate was at a locked frame rate, which was really cool to see when it comes to ARMS for the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, Nintendo, now that you've decided to update this game, can we please, I am begging you, Nintendo, ARMS 2. I love ARMS so much. I feel like this game got dropped so fast because of Splatoon 2. And it was so weird that Nintendo was like, hey, let's release ARMS, and then 3 weeks later, release Splatoon 2. That was so stupid, in my opinion. But this is a very special game, a unique IP. We need to see this to come back. This is an incredible game. Buy it. It's perfect for the Nintendo Switch 2. It looks amazing. It runs amazing. It's great. Please, buy this. So I was looking back on my Nintendo Switch games, and I was trying to remember some experiences that I had where I was like, wow, the frame rate on this is pretty bad. And then it came to me that I realized that I had a scrapped video that never released. That video was going to be on Disney Dreamlight Valley. And I decided to be like, hey, you know what? I remember having not the greatest experience of playing that game on the Switch 1. Let's see how it works on the Switch 2. So I downloaded it, and well, the visuals, of course, were not improved, as it does not have a Nintendo Switch 2 update as of right now. However, one of the things that I had a problem with when I had this on the Switch 1 was the frame rate. The frame rate was really all over the place. In fact, I stopped playing the game due to the frame rate for the Nintendo Switch 1 version of this game. And when I put this on the Nintendo Switch 2, it was at a locked frame rate. I was very much impressed. Pretty sure it was at a 30 frame per second frame rate, which is obviously because there's not a Switch 2 version of the game out there. I'm expecting Disney and Gameloft to actually update the game though, and have it be a Nintendo Switch 2 version with 60 frames per second. But it's been great to go back to playing this world and seeing it at a locked frame rate. Now, visually, it's all over the place. It's kind of a mess, but one of my main issues with it was the frame rate, and the fact that the Switch 2 was able to bring this game at a better locked frame rate is impressive. Now we just need Disney to go ahead and make an official Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game, which is probably going to happen because they've already started to do that with Speedstorm. That's another thing that they've got going that's been very popular for them. So I expect in the coming weeks that Dreamlight Valley will be receiving a Nintendo Switch 2 update. And for the final game that I have to show y'all on how I felt on playing it for the Nintendo Switch 2 is none other than Super Mario Odyssey. Now this is going to be one of those moments where people are probably going to attack me in the comments because my words have been misconstrued for years. I have said that Mario Odyssey is a overrated game. And people have taken that comment and made it seem like that I think that I hate Mario Odyssey. I don't hate Mario Odyssey. I think it's a great game. It's a phenomenal game. But it is not my favorite Mario game. I don't think it should have those type of words being said when you have things like Mario Galaxy and my personal favorite, 3D World. People think that this is the best Mario game, and it is what it is. I just think it's crazy that some people think it's just one of the best video games of all time. I don't think Odyssey is anywhere near that level. But we're playing it again on the Nintendo Switch 2 because Nintendo did a free update for this game that improves the visuals, frame rate, all that good stuff. And how is it, you guys are probably asking? Well, I was kind of impressed. The reason why I'm impressed is Nintendo giving this as a free update kind of surprised me, as I would have thought with the fact that they did Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom as a $10 upgrade, I kind of thought something like Odyssey, since that was one of their bigger Switch 1 games, would have an upgrade like that. But I guess what it comes down to is that Nintendo realized they weren't adding anything new into Mario Odyssey enough to charge an extra $10. Which honestly, I'm very happy that Nintendo did not force that $10 price tag. But let's talk about the update. Now, the frame rate has been completely fixed with Mario Odyssey. There were times, depending what you were doing in Mario Odyssey, that you would see a slight frame rate dip, but it was nothing ever crazy in my opinion for the Switch 1. All that has been fixed with the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game, however. And the big thing that Nintendo has been promoting are the visuals. And honestly, the visuals are definitely a big difference. Now, depending the kingdom that I'm in, I never really noticed that I was like, oh wow, look at that big visual difference. It was only things like the Mushroom Kingdom and New Donk City that I was like, oh wow, okay, I definitely see the visual difference now. And it is very noticeable. I mean, if you look at the grass compared to the Switch 1 to the Switch 2 for Mario Odyssey, it is night and day. And I'm very still surprised that Nintendo did not charge $10 for this, because that just seems like the thing they would want to do, especially considering it's Mario. But this was definitely one of the better free upgrades from Nintendo, and I'm very impressed with it. And again, I'm gonna say it again, very surprised that it was free. This just does not seem to be like the Nintendo thing to do. But what this tells me is that I think going forward, a majority of these upgrades are going to be free. The only ones that you'll have to pay for is if it's adding extra content, something like Mario Party is doing in the next coming weeks. Definitely one that I would recommend picking up for your Nintendo Switch 2 if for whatever reason you have not played Mario Odyssey yet. All I'm saying is it's not my favorite Mario game. I'm not saying the game sucks, okay? You guys in the comments better not be like, Max hates Mario Odyssey. I never said that. Guys, those are all the games that I've recently been playing. Do you want to see this series continue? Let me know in the comments down below. I would also like if you guys could suggest some games that you would like to see me play in terms of seeing how, if it looks better, runs better, that type of stuff. Because we've seen with games that ran horrible on the Nintendo Switch 1 actually get fixed through the Switch 2. So I'll definitely be reading the comments for that. But guys, I have been talking for way too much. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, like the video, check out the Twitter, the Instagram, Discord, all that good stuff in the description below. Become a Monado Marine, our YouTube membership, for $5 a month. Helps the channel tremendously, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.